The coworker with the $100,000 lifted pickup truck? The neighbor who goes on pricey vacations every single year? The friend who upgrades their iPhone every year?
iPhone 4,
5,
6, 7, 8, 10,
11, 12, 13, 14, 15 Pro.
How do they afford it? What's their secret? I've spent the last few months digging into something that nobody really wants to talk about. Not the government, not your bank, not your friends or family, and definitely not the guy in the leased Beamer.
$1,700 a month for the X3M lease.
Yeah.
What's your payment?
I drive a G80 M3 and my payment's $1,080.
And there is a reason for that. And it's also why people making even $200,000 and $300,000 a year are barely making ends meet. Income doesn't protect you from this phenomenon. This isn't an accident. It's a trap, and today I'll be exposing how it works and how you can break free. I used to work here at Best Buy. My job? Convince college kids and everyone else to max out their credit cards on gadgets that they couldn't really afford. And let me tell you, it worked. I was the top salesperson for months in a row. This system is rigged against you. Marketers, banks, and even your own brain are wired to make you chase a life that you can't afford. But after this video, you'll never say, I can afford that, the same way again. Let's start with the biggest lie that you've been sold for your entire life. The word afford. Because it means nothing. And it also means everything. This'll all make sense by the end of the video. Swipe here, split the payment, lease the dream. Sound familiar? Let's break down how they trap you. The language of manipulation is that of marketers, and I would know because I am a content marketer. But I would like to think that I am one of the good guys because I'm trying to make the world a better place by marketing anti-consumption and good financial practices and economical and environmentally sensitive and sustainable lifestyles. First, we need to talk about this seemingly short, simple, and innocent word, afford. It's weird because it's just so arbitrary and ambiguous. It means nothing in the modern era. See, when you go to a car dealership, the salesperson helpfully asks you what your monthly budget is, the first thing, and then proceeds to max that out by using the old, well, for 96 months of affordable, low monthly payments, I can get you in this needlessly expensive car, and tells you what you can afford. Of course, I realize the job of the salesperson is to sell you things. I get it, but that doesn't mean that you should take their advice because they don't know the whole financial picture. They don't know your whole financial picture. And they're just there to sell you shit. See, I worked at Best Buy selling computers, and I was incentivized to sell extra protection plans because they're almost entirely profit for the company, because people don't often take advantage of them or straight up forget that they have them, or what they do. And soaking up the most amount of upfront profit at the point of sale is incredibly important, especially when adding it to larger purchases, because these larger purchases aren't all that frequent compared to the smaller ones. And for, let's say, Apple product sales, the margins aren't even thin, they're non-existent for Best Buy. They're loss leaders, and the only way that Best Buy can make money for keeping Apple products in stock is to sell extras, like numerous accessories and payment plans and protection plans or warranties. So obviously there's an incentive there. I mean, it makes sense. And it can help the customer. But I was one of the highest performers when it came to add-on sales. I knew that because everyone's sales and add-on sales were tracked and scored against the rest of the sales team. And what did I get in return? To stay employed, making just above minimum wage. Woo! No bonus, just a nice pat on the back from them, and here's how you can improve your sales for the next quarter, because even though you outperformed everyone on the team, we're gonna have to make sure that you feel the threat of potentially getting fired for underperformance so that you can continue to grind as hard as possible for as little in return as possible. But could these customers really afford all of these products? Well, we often got students from Western University and Fanshawe College here in London, Canada, coming by to buy laptops or gaming rigs and monitors and other things, but let's focus just on the computers for now. I got firsthand experience of seeing just how many people's credit cards were being maxed out or declined. Of course, then I would offer a solution. Best Buy's in-house financing plan, which had high approval rates because Best Buy's finance team knows who their target demographic is and was and how to make financing work in their favor. And suddenly, these students were able to afford these expensive tech products, even though just moments before, they couldn't afford them at all. And as is natural, the next question out of their mouths often was, how much was I approved for? And suddenly they're getting a bunch more items and maxing out their new limits on this new financing plan, which they had never even bothered to figure out the terms and conditions of. Now, although this was none of my business because it wasn't part of my role at Best Buy, but also because I had quite a bit of wiggle room in my sales goals, I would explain things to them, the customers that I was selling to, that no other salesperson would. From the terms and conditions to interest rates and how I'd recommend paying this balance off as soon as possible to avoid incurring extra interest charges and fees and how they shouldn't max out their full approved financing amount, etc., etc. But most of the time, the customers would just stare at me blankly and say, okay, so do I pay now or... And just nothing that I said went in their brains. Sometimes a customer would put back an overpriced laptop case or something like that back on the shelf and then continue with the purchase of everything else on the transaction. But for the most part, people were there to spend money, period. Not even money that they had, but money that they wanted to spend. I got pretty good at splitting MacBook Pro purchases into 4 different payments for a single transaction. So like $1,000 on one credit card, another $1,000 on a second credit card, I don't know, like $200 in cash, and the rest on the Best Buy financing plan. Of course, I wasn't a financial advisor, and I'm still not a financial advisor, so I knew nothing of their full financial situation. The bank of mom and dad probably paid for half of those things, which is why the kids didn't care. But the financing plan was in their name, using and affecting their credit score, whether their parents knew about this purchase or not. But this experience sets young people up for instant gratification. The expectation that they can just afford everything that they want, when they want, without giving any thought to their financial situation or financial goals. And transactions like these roll into the rest of your life. See, these young university and college students go through the next few years of their lives living this way. And for those who aren't attending post-secondary education, similar things are happening at workplaces of other young people. It's just easier nowadays because there are more ways for companies to allow you to buy now and pay later. But it's also more prevalent because of, and I think you know where I'm about to go with this, the illusion of social media influencers and luxury leases and the overall flex culture that's throwing gasoline on the desire to buy, and keep up with the Joneses. But you have to realize that the majority of the time that young BMW driver isn't rolling in dough. He's rolling in debt. So you roll into the next phase of your life, which is when you're at the workplace and you begin earning a paycheck. Congratulations! But you're surprised by the taxes and all the bills that you now have to pay as an adult, and you realize that your take-home pay isn't all that much. Naturally, you complain, but just like everyone else in your life, you continue to just buy. And this happens in all income brackets, really. There are exceptions, of course, but not many. For example, let's do a little case study here. Even if Jennifer is making $200,000 per year in salary, because of her line of work and her status, well, lifestyle creep followed her all the way up her career ladder. She and her partner are pretty much maxed out on their expenses with a massive mortgage for a massive McMansion they don't really need, a house cleaner for that big home, private schools, lavish vacations, 3 car leases, jewelry, watches, luxury perfumes, fancy soaps, the newest iPhone every single year, and all the fancy house gadgets you could dream of. At $190,000 in this case study, those expenses add up fast. And things like taxes and maintenance and insurance and emergency funds, investing, optimizing your taxes through specific tax advantaged or tax deferring accounts, surprise, they're not budgeting for those. They're just buying. Worse than this is the isolation, because like most people, talking about money is taboo with them. So because both Jennifer and her partner like nice things, they're too anxious to even talk about all of this with each other. They don't want to rock the boat when everything seems so great right now, even though they might be aware of how close they are to toppling this precarious house of cards that they've built together. A slight breeze and everything will come crashing right down. But they don't want to talk about it. The cool thing about this, though, is that marketing isn't just for the poors, because marketing, as you probably already very well know, is very targeted. And once you start moving up the career ladder and income levels, you'll be hit with marketing that makes you feel absolutely horrendous about yourself if you aren't keeping up your appearances. The big companies can't have you saving all of that money and retiring in just a few short years. Nah. Consumerism has to soak up every last dollar it can from you, whilst you're still working your ass off for an average of 37 years of your life. Of course, the same thing goes for Brian, who makes minimum wage. The main difference is that his cash flow in and out is obviously lower. So more of his after-tax earnings go towards essentials like groceries, car payments, gas, rent. Nope, that's actually all he can afford, unfortunately. But there's still a strong desire to keep up with people like Jennifer. So instead of saving and building towards a brighter, less stressful future, maybe cutting down on a few expenses, he's been coerced by society at large to keep up with the Joneses, or at this point, keep up with the influencers. Bam. Just like that, life. See, lifestyle creep builds and follows you from your younger years all the way to your deathbed, because every stage of your life involves comparison. Every stage. Your values may change. They probably will change throughout your life. But from your first day at school, to trying to fit in at high school and parties, to trying to fit in and excel in university and college, or figuring out which car fits your desired personality, or trying to fit in at work or sporting events, or how you dress your own children in either luxury brands or used marketplace clothing or anywhere in between, or which school your kids go to, or which sport you choose to stay active with yourself, or which community you join, or which casket you think holds your dead body the prettiest way so that people you leave behind remember that you spent $50,000 on a box because you could. Wow, that got morbid really quick. Yep. It's true though. The hard truth is that you'll never stop being judged for the things you do or the way that you live your life. Ever. You cannot escape it. But you can change how you respond to the judgment and pressures to do what is normal. Because if you don't, life is hard at any income level. One missed payment triggers a spiral of credit card payments, an increase in using buy now, pay later services and loans, refinancing, and sometimes if you don't pull yourself together fast enough, bankruptcy. It's just stressful to set your life up as a late game Jenga tower where just the littlest of things could lead to a full-on collapse of your life, because your finances are what you go to work for, right? So if they collapse, every other piece of your life falls down with it. Well, that's for almost everyone, but if you're an insecure billionaire, you've got other problems, because no one will ever love you and will only pretend to love you so that they can use you for your money. But that's only a select few sacks of shit in the world. You, dear viewer, aren't going to become a billionaire, statistically, and neither will I. And that's great news, because billionaires are only possible through extreme exploitation of other people and resources. So they're all bad people, no matter how you put it. You don't want to be a bad person, right? Now, multimillionaires are on a slightly different scale. You'll be just fine, and you'll be able to do a lot of good in your life and live comfortably too. So now comes the next bit. Why do we keep on falling for this affording it scam? I've already mentioned societal pressures and marketing, but let's dive in a little bit deeper into FOMO. So the fear of missing out, I'm sure most of you know what that is. It feels like a modern curse, but humans have always been terrified of missing out or being seen as less than. Let's do a little time travel just to see how our ancestors fell for the same traps, just with different props. From the survival perspective, thousands of years ago, being part of a tribe was key to survival, and if you didn't fit in then you were cast aside and you'd probably die. And it would be horrific by being torn to shreds by predators just because you didn't have your own pack to help you. You'd be outnumbered by a pack of wolves, for example, and that's stuck with us. It's burned into our DNA. That's why we get the warm fuzzies when we're included in a group or community like family, friends, or activities like sports or even board game nights. In researching FOMO for this section, I actually realized that there's an entire other video that could be way more detailed with so much FOMO throughout the years that it's crazy. But put simply, conspicuous consumption or keeping up with the Joneses started in the late 1800s. In the Gilded Age, from the 1870s to the 1900s-ish, the industrial tycoons like the Rockefellers and Vanderbilts built mansions and threw $10 million parties in today's money and flaunted imported art to signal status. Meanwhile, the middle-class families of the time copied them with parlor rooms, which were useless, fancy rooms just for show. See, we're not that different from our ancestors. And in the 1890s, mail-order catalogs from Sears sold everything from silk dresses to pianos, creating envy in rural communities. So the farmers' wives would compare their homes to catalog imagery, which is like setup, that's marketing, right? And this encouraged debt to upgrade their own homes to keep up. In small-town churches and communities, especially in the 1800s all the way through to the 1950s, showing up to church in outdated clothes or without, the newest hat could label you as poor or uncivilized. So that's why closets of the time, albeit very small, had your work clothes and your Sunday clothes, so that your fellow churchgoers wouldn't gossip about your shabby appearance and your shabby clothes. And it keeps on going on and on and on all the way through the ages. Like in the 1920s with the automobile arm race, Henry Ford's Model T, infamous, famous, you pick, was affordable. But people still upgraded to pricier cars like Packards and Cadillacs purely for status. Your neighbor's car wasn't just transportation, it was a rolling billboard of their worth. And in the 1950s, magazines made the perfect housewife, like when the Good Housekeeping magazine sold an idealized suburban life with the new appliances and spotless home, which created shame for those who couldn't match the unattainable look. Unless you get this push vacuum cleaner for only $19.99 a month, call now. See, whether we were living in caves, or it was 1825, or 2025, humans hate the feeling of being less than. The props change, so like silverware and SUVs, Instagram, but the game stays the same. Buy stuff you don't need to impress people you don't like with the money you don't have. The difference? Today's scams are just faster and louder and buried in your pocket. FOMO-driven spending has significant financial consequences because many people turn to credit cards or BNPL or buy now pay later services to finance their lifestyle-driven purchases that are only in people's minds because of the ever-increasing amount of social media scrolling that we're doing. Doom scrolling is costing us money. For the majority of us, this spending erodes our savings instead of prioritizing long-term financial goals. We focus on immediate gratification because of the pressure to maintain an outward image, which results in anxiety and financial instability, which just adds even more stress into an already, oftentimes, stressful life that everyone leads. Right before we get into how you can actually afford to live your life going forward, there's one more thing that you need to understand, which is how the American dream was sold to the world, but it's fake. It's marketing. As a Canadian, the United States of America has always been our largest trading partner, at least in my lifetime. Obviously, things change like in 2025, but aside from those physical goods, Americans have also been very good at distributing their capitalist propaganda across the entire planet. Part of that is the whole white picket fence American dream that I'm pretty sure everyone in the world knows about, except maybe those behind the Great Firewall. But it's all a lie. The quote,
"It's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it,"
is a well-known saying attributed to the late comedian and social critic George Carlin.
"Because the owners of this country know the truth."
Watch his stuff. It's great. There's so many clips on YouTube and everything. Oh, it's all so good. It's worth a watch. It's a cynical commentary on the idea of the American dream, suggesting that the pursuit of wealth and material success is so unrealistic and unattainable for many that it requires the state of naive optimism or even straight up denial to believe in it. For most people, American or not, if you're attempting to live the American dream, you're just doing exactly what big companies want you to do until the day you die. Go to school to learn how to be part of a rigged system, but not learn about the rigged system that you'll be participating in for the rest of your life. Don't ask questions, be a good employee. Make money, get taxed, spend what you have left on the things that marketing has convinced you and everyone else to buy so that it can make you appear outwardly successful to people who don't give a shit about you. Continue not to save as much as you could so that you can continue working for a company that harvests your time and energy so that they can benefit greatly off of your work whilst giving minor raises or no raises at all because things aren't going so well, even though the CEO and executives get paid millions of dollars in bonuses for the hard work that you, as a cog in the machine, do. Get to your midlife crisis, spend all the money you don't have on yet another material thing, go deeper in debt at a time when you could have already been retired for years before. Congrats! Now you have to work until you're 80 years old. You are now 80 years old and you can now retire, and you also get old age security and benefits and live out your golden years. Finally! Just joking. 1 year into retirement and you're bedridden from working too hard and not getting enough time off and being so stressed out. Whoopsies! You just had a heart attack because of all of that. They now resuscitated you, but you are stuck in a long-term care facility. Luckily, it won't be long until... So, no. The American dream is not real. It's propaganda to keep everyone working harder for longer so that the 1% can get rich off of your labor. Yay! Sounds like fun.
That is how the world works.
Wow. Ben, holy fuck. That's hard hitting. What the hell is wrong with you? Yeah, okay, I can see where you're coming from. Well, you, who's talking to me through a pre-recorded video, which is weird, but okay. I'm just being real with you. But there's good news. You don't have to end up like that. There's a better way to live life. So here is how you actually afford it. We need to redefine what the word afford means to you. Just like how personal finance is very personal to everyone, so is the word afford. For me, the word afford is exclusively used as an excuse to get out of doing something because everyone understands the phrase, sorry, I can't afford that right now. I don't even think I've ever used the word afford in a positive, almost mantra-like statement, like, I can afford that brand new phone right now, because to me, just saying that legitimately seems like I'm trying to convince myself or others to, like, justify me buying it. Of course I can afford it. Anyone can afford anything nowadays. It's called financing. I could go lease a Lamborghini right now and put it in the driveway if I just went through the paperwork and wanted to blow all of my money on useless, delicate, uncomfortable, and unreliable glorified Honda Civics. A Lamborghini. When you're sitting in traffic on a public road, it doesn't matter that you can hit 200 kilometers an hour, 300 kilometers an hour. Who cares? When everyone's average speed is 5 kilometers an hour. Maybe ride a bike instead. You go a lot faster than that. When traffic is a thing, yeah. But anyways, I'm not fooling anyone, including myself, when I just try to justify a purchase by saying I can afford that. In reality, if I need to do something, I do my research, I run the numbers, and I typically wait at least 3 days or longer. Then I come back to see if I still want the thing. But by waiting for those 3 days, I've prevented myself from impulse buying thousands of things over the years that would have just cluttered up my life and wasted my time and money. Now, When you say I can't afford that right now to salespeople, they'll suggest payment plans and other ways to get you to be able to afford whatever they're selling. So I follow up with the phrase that my wife and I are huge fans of nowadays: I'll have to think about it and get back to you. Or just let me get back to you on that. For everyone else who's not trying to sell you something, like family, friends, or colleagues, if you say, sorry, I can't afford that, they'll usually lay off pretty quickly. And they won't press you further for an answer. Remember, talking about money is culturally taboo. So even if you like talking about finances like me, you can make the most of the fact that it's taboo and will make people feel awkward. If they do push for an answer, which is rare, I have a nice authentic chat with them about how I prefer saving than doing blah, 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 whatever it is that I don't want to do. Yeah, just being authentic is key. Now, if a salesperson pushes for a further explanation, I'll give them it straight and I'll just say, hey man, I was trying to spare you the details, but I'm not making a decision today. There are exactly 0 ways out of this situation right now that I am giving you more than a big fat 0. This conversation is over and I'm leaving now. If I don't want a thing, I'm not being pressured into buying it. It's just not happening. I'll think about it and I'll get back to them. On the same topic of redefining what the word afford means to you, I'd also say that a budget is good. But once you get to the point when you're not spending everything you make and actually have a nice big emergency fund, savings, investments, and generally more assets than liabilities, you can pretty much afford anything you want. And it really becomes more of a, will this thing make my life better and do I want it sort of decision. I'm sure some of you were just waiting for e-bikes to pop up in this video if you are familiar with a lot of my previous work. But yeah, this would be an example of where a $5,000 or $10,000 electric assist e-bike would make my life better, and I want it. But that's a whole other video. I just had to sneak that in there. But it does actually align with the next way of how to actually afford life. See, it's most likely that the richest people you know drive Hondas or Toyotas or wear sweatpants. From my past life shooting exotic cars, I know for a fact that business owners who've made it have their boring cars to drive into work and their exotic cars to do Sunday drives or car meetups with. I'm not saying everyone has an exotic car, but that's their hobby. So they made it their hobby. That's where they wanted to put their play money. They are fairly wealthy and they still don't want to flaunt it publicly. So they keep their identity kind of like hidden from their workers, the public, etc. Morally questionable? Maybe. Don't know. That's up to them and you to decide. And it's not everyone, but in general, people who are truly wealthy don't want to flaunt their wealth because that just brings on bad luck and makes life more difficult for them to live. Staying in the shadows helps you fly under the radar throughout life because if you flaunt your wealth, that brings on more costs associated with plenty of things, but especially added security costs, just to name one. So now we get to the really fun stuff that I'd say most people can take advantage of in their lifetime without too much effort or time. And they can do it right now. Imagine sleeping soundly and being entirely stress-free instead of worrying about potential layoffs. Imagine being able to go to job interviews and demand exactly what you want, and because you have nothing to lose and aren't needy, you come off as confident and knowledgeable about the corporate game, so then you get hired because of all of that. Yeah, once potential employers need you more than you need them, the world gets to be fun. The game is rigged, but suddenly it's in your favor. Or imagine spending your time working on your own business from the comfort of having saved for years working a regular job instead of spending everything you made during that time so that you had to continue working. All of this can happen if you consistently save, or preferably you automate your savings and build up a nice 6 to 12 month emergency fund and say no to lifestyle creep. Is it that simple? Kinda. But those are topics that you can easily find out more about online. Now that you know what to look up. So yeah, back to the beginning when I mentioned the guy in the Beamer. You should pity him. The freedom to walk away beats the stress of keeping up. Always. I'll end on a few things that you should do as action items, like audit your vision of affordability. Take small steps towards your own financial independence. No one else is going to do it for you. You have to do it. This is on you because it's your life. Own it. Drive less, bike more, avoid buying a car if you can, or as long as you possibly can. You can also go car light. So especially within a couple, if you have bicycles, can both ride. Okay, this is a whole other topic, but go car light. It's very handy. Saves a lot of money and reduces your driving considerably. Don't forget to laugh at the next ad telling you to upgrade something when, where's my phone? This thing's like 4 years old and it still works totally fine. You don't need to upgrade to the newest, greatest thing every single friggin' year. So laugh at the next ad telling you to upgrade something when you already have what is good enough for you. There's always gonna be the next new thing, and you don't always need it. Make sure you watch this video or this video. Get off of social media. It's pretty toxic and takes more than it gives. Live life richly, not expensively. Like, subscribe, and comment. Check out my Patreon to get early releases, behind the scenes content, and more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.